Right, good evening to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to the Friday, the 4th of July edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Before we continue with the video, be sure to hit that like button, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Another interesting weekend coming up. Tropical Outlook tomorrow, and then the live stream will be live from the A9 at 4:15 p.m. on Sunday coming up. So I will leave a link in the description below for that on Sunday. So busy as usual here on the channel. The subscriptions continue to rise, getting ever closer to 7,000 subscribers. So I would greatly appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button. Absolutely free content 7 days a week. Want to say a special mention to my dad, who has turned 70 years of age today. So I want to say a special shout out to my dad. Happy birthday, and I hope you are enjoying your day. So that is that. We do have some fairly unsettled conditions now driving into particularly the central and northern UK. We've got a bank of thick cloud cover, heavy persistent rain moving in on brisk west-southwesterly winds. We do have some sunshine across the South Midlands and the south of England, as well as Wales. And we are seeing temperatures lifting up fairly substantially at the moment. You can see here that we're knocking the door of 28 Celsius in the southeast, a far cry from the rest of the UK, it has to be said. Really, this has been kind of the story of the summer so far. Now, do check out the last couple of videos, because I've alluded to the longer range stuff. This will be a relatively short and sweet video. I'm kind of running a little bit behind time today. But you can see here much fresher conditions further north and over Ireland and Northern Ireland as well. But it is feeling muggy out there, it has to be said. There is quite a distinct muggy feel. That will continue as we progress into tomorrow as well. But you can see a sharp cut off here between 17 to 19 in North Yorkshire, all the way down into Lincolnshire. We're talking about mid-20s here. So a very sharp difference here in temperature across England. As you can see here, looking at the European temperatures, very hot conditions across the majority of southern Europe, really, from Iberia all the way to Turkey here. Temperatures upper 30s, even some low 40s to speak about. Again, a relatively muggy and reasonably warm day across the north of France, Low Countries into Germany and Poland here as well. So, yeah, relatively warm across the continent, albeit we are starting to see changes taking place. If you notice here, this is the latest radar imagery here, showing some pretty heavy precipitation. It's not overly clear here. This is off Met Irian and the EU Metsat, and you can see that we've got some pretty heavy rainfall driving in. So western areas of Ireland, the UK, and as well as that, Denmark, Norway, areas that are prone to the winds coming in off the Atlantic. That is where the wettest conditions are going to be. High and dry across the bulk of Europe, as can be seen both in the radar as well as the visible satellite imagery here. So, I wanted to show you this off earthnoschool.net, showing the winds. I believe this is surface winds here, and it very nicely depicts the pattern at the moment here. We've got an area of high pressure just to the north-northeast of the Azores. We've got winds coming around that. We've got a relatively warm tongue of air wrapping around that circulation and then getting driven into the UK. We've got an area of stretched out low pressure to the north of the UK and Ireland here. So the combination between the low and the high is driving some fairly moist and milder into the UK and Ireland here at the moment. Somewhat less breezy and also clearer the further south you go over the UK. Notice here a lack of winds over the continent. Also notice here for some fairly brisk winds blowing between Iberia and that high just to the north of the Azores here. Very strong northerly winds here getting driven down into the Canaries and then out over the central Atlantic in the form of the easterly trade winds here. So I've got like essentially two cells of high pressure, one to the north of the Azores and the other over the central Atlantic, and winds coming around the top in the form of the westerlies and in the form of the easterlies underneath that area of high pressure. Just wanted to show you that for a little change. In terms of precipitation over the last 24 hours, 48 hours, We do have the wettest conditions north and northwest of the UK as well as Ireland. These totals will be much more significant over the next day or so here when, essentially the 24 to 36 hour rainfall total has been measured. You could see some west-facing hilly areas of Scotland picking up close to 100 millimetres of rain over the last 24 to 36 hours. Again, high and dry across the bulk of England and Wales. That has been mentioned in the last couple of videos, so I'm not going to really mention that in today's video. These are the current temperature anomalies globally, and you can see here some reasonably cold conditions across Antarctica, South America. We're going to look at the South American cold of the last week or so. Some very chilly conditions across central and southern United States. I say chilly, obviously it's still summertime, it's still July, but below average is probably the best way to describe it. We've got warmer across the northern tier in the eastern United States, with exceptions of the northeast. And we've got a mixture of cold, quite a large scale area of cold across northern British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Then it warms up over Manitoba and northern Quebec and Ontario. You've got warmth over much of Europe here, with exceptions of Scandinavia and Poland, for example. Even Turkey, we've seen high elevation snow in the mountains of Turkey over the last 24 hours or so, which is quite interesting. Then we've got this mixture below average across India, thanks to plentiful monsoon moisture over central and northern portions of India. We'll look at that in a little bit more detail over the next couple of days as well here in the channel, so stay tuned for that. Warmer than average across the bulk of Australia, and a split here. Very warm western China, central cool, and then eastern China, northeastern China is firmly warmer than average. The majority of Southeast Asia is actually slightly below average thanks to cloud cover and rainfall, but much more detail on that coming up in both tomorrow's tropical outlook as well as the live stream this upcoming Sunday. In terms of the overview here, this is of the GFS. Let's have a look at the ECMWF and look at the overview chart here. So you can see here, there's the Azores High to the northeast, centered at 1034 millibars according to the ECMWF. There's that long stretched out area of low pressure depicted by Earth and Old School, and then the moisture getting driven in between that into the north of Ireland and the northern UK. Now things are going to turn a lot more unsettled across more of the UK as we progress through the weekend. We're going to see a frontal system drop south. That is going to drop the temperature across the south of the UK here. Starting off very muggy, but there should be something a little bit fresher, less warm moving into the south of the UK here. I get the fact that there's people out there that want heat. There's people that don't want heat. They're trying to get happy medium. I enjoy heat. I go to tropical countries to enjoy the warm, humid feel. So I'm very much on board with I enjoy heat, but you're trying to get that balance between people who hate the heat and people who love the heat. I have been reading your comments, but you can see here as we move through the course of the weekend, that area of low pressure then sneaks off to the east, northeast, and we've got a little bit of a northwesterly flow coming in. Cooler, showerier regime. If you look at the 850s here, you can see that little tongue of something fresher coming into play once again. Go back to the overview chart here, and as we progress into next week, we've got a kind of somewhat cooler, showerier northwesterly flow according to the ECM model anyway. Then an area of high pressure then tries to bump in over the UK and Ireland as we move into the day on Tuesday. This is obviously one operational run of the model here, so this isn't there's going to be differences, minor differences here and there depending on what model run and what model you look at. But you can see here generally high pressure end of the day on Tuesday, maybe a cooler night, clear skies, lighter winds. But you can see here generally speaking we've got this kind of westerly component to our flow. But as we move towards the end of next week, there is an opportunity for warmer air to come back in. Now the ECMWF is a little bit flatter with that scenario. The GFS is a lot more bullish. So if you look at this here of the ECMWF model, we are largely out of the real heat, so to speak. But if you look at the GFS model here, it's a different story altogether. We've got warmer air getting lifted up into the UK here. So there is a lot of uncertainty towards the back half of next week, and obviously that is still a week away. But we will monitor this. We will discuss this in the live stream this upcoming Sunday and also through early next week as well here. So a changeable, somewhat fresher weekend coming up with the showers or longer spells of rain. We've got a generally westerly component to our flow at the moment here. So, essentially it's a fairly typical July regime where you've got low pressure to the north, high pressure to the south, and our air coming in from the west here. Very quickly, there is a system here that is trying to consolidate off the southeast coast of the United States. It's got a 60% chance of development over the next 7 days. Going to be discussing this in the Tropical Outlook tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Happy birthday to Dad. Enjoy your day, and I hope everybody enjoys their upcoming weekend. Stay tuned for lots more to come as well. Bye-bye.